Hello guys, how are we all doing? Welcome back to Premier League predictions. The international break is over, Sophie.
Thank God for that.
And there's no international breaks till March.
That's nice now. Got a good run.
It's going to be football over the next few months, guys. Welcome back to Premier League predictions. In the last video, we smashed the biggest like target ever of 1,600. So you know what that means. We're adding 100 more. 1,700 likes is the like target for this video. It's a big target. If everyone hits that thumbs up button, I'm sure we can do it. It is free to do. While you are there, also make sure to hit the subscribe button. That is free to do as well. And it means you see our videos when they go out. We're trying to hit 46,000 by the end of this week, so please do make sure to like and subscribe. In the final Premier League week of predictions before that international break, I did just about get the better of Sophie with my predictions, and that has brought it to now a 1 point gap. You are just in front, Sophie. Before we get into the predictions themselves, guys, we need to mention that this video is being sponsored by Pookie. Pookie is a football predictor game, which is certainly worth getting involved in. We get involved, so you guys need to get involved. The link is down in the description. Last week on Pookie, I actually did pretty well with my predictions. I did manage to predict Wolves to win 2-1 against Tottenham. I also did back Aston Villa to beat Fulham 3-1. And remember, the more predictions you get correct, the more points you get, which can actually be extracted into real money. If you click the link down in the description, you will see how easy Pookie is to use. You just need to head over to the Premier League, which is under English leagues, and then you can predict all 10 games, putting in whichever score you think the game will be. It is completely free to play, it's easy to use, and it's fun to look back at your predictions afterwards to see how well you did.
And remember, if you get all 10 predictions right, you can win $10,000.
That is crazy. I know a lot of you guys watching think your Premier League predictions are better than ours. You let us know down in the comments. Well, let us know over on Pookie. The link is down in the description. Let's move on to predicting some of the games, Sophie. Let's start with an absolute cracker at the Etihad as Manchester City face Liverpool. This is a fantastic game. There are so many teams squabbling over the top of the table places, and this game is fantastic. Manchester City also take on Tottenham next week as well. So Man City have got a very difficult couple games coming, but they are both at home. Man City will come into this as the favourites. They are going to be the favourites to win this game with the bookmakers. They're still the favourites to win the Premier League, but it is tight. And Liverpool have looked pretty good.
They have. Mainly at home, though.
Yeah.
They've looked a very good team at home, so maybe that'll come into play here.
Definitely worth mentioning that because their last two Premier League results were a 3-0 home win over Brentford, but before that was just a 1-1 draw away at Luton Town, in which they scored in the last minute. Also need to mention Luis Diaz scored a couple of goals during the international break. What a story for that man, honestly unbelievable. For this game, Sophie, I do make Manchester City favourites, but I do think Liverpool could come and get something. On occasions, Jurgen Klopp has got the better of Pep Guardiola, but it's a stretch to see them winning at the Etihad. But it's not impossible. I'm going to go for an entertaining Desmond. It's got to be 2-2 for me. 2-2.
Do you know, I was tempted to say 3-3, and I thought, I can't remember the last time a 3-3 played out, so I'm going to go for a Desmond as well. And I don't think a draw would be a bad result for Liverpool, to be honest, but Man City can't really afford to be dropping points at home because the title race at the moment is so close. So really, Man City need to be winning this game at home, but I don't see it happening. So I agree. An entertaining Desmond, 2-2.
2-2 draw. On to the next game then, Sophie. We are going to Turf Moor for Burnley versus West Ham United. Burnley have been struggling, but I've looked at their fixtures up until Christmas and there's opportunities for them to pick some points up. Burnley are one of the teams that could benefit from an Everton point deduction. We'll come on to Everton later. Burnley are bottom, but it's so tight that a win could bring them out of the bottom three this weekend. They're yet to pick up any points at home, though.
I know.
It's been really bad. I mean, on the road, they've looked spirited, but at home, they just keep conceding goals, and they need to get something here. West Ham United come into this game on the back of a 3-2 home win against Nottingham Forest. That was a crazy game, and I think there will be goals in this game. I do think West Ham have looked pretty strong this season. They'll look at this thinking, let's get 3 points, let's move further into the top 6 or so in the Premier League. I'm going to say Burnley 1, West Ham 2. I do think West Ham win this game. Burnley just not convincing me at home, but I'm happy to be proved wrong.
Burnley just aren't convincing me in general, to be honest. I was expecting more from them, and so far, before this international break, they've not looked very good at all. especially being at home as well. I'm not too sure what's going on there, but I don't see them getting anything from this. West Ham, at times, they've looked quite good, and they've got the quality to win this one for me. So 2-0, a little bit more comfortable.
2-0 to the Hammers. Yeah, both going for West Ham there. Do share your predictions for Burnley versus West Ham United. Next up, Sophie, we're going to go to Kenilworth Road, where Luton Town take on Crystal Palace. I think both sides can look at this as winnable. Palace, because they're away at a side that's, below them in the table. Luton have not won at home yet. But Luton, what an opportunity to get their first home win. Crystal Palace, they're a solid Premier League regular, but not been totally inspiring in recent weeks. They did lose at home to Everton just before the international break. Yeah. And although I was tempted to go for a draw here, I think Luton Town have really got to start aiming for maximum points. And I think they could just do it. They will win at home eventually. And maybe in this game they will. I'm going to go Luton Town 2, Crystal Palace 1. I think Luton have been competitive. And I think their next win is coming.
Yeah, I was really tempted to back a Luton win in this one. But there's something just screaming draw about this game. And I don't think that would be a terrible result for Luton. Obviously, they need more than just the 1 point. But Crystal Palace can be quite hard to break down. So I'm going to say a 1-1.
Ooh, yeah. I'm going for a 1-1. Do you know what?
For a 1-1.
Well, do you know what? It's because I was thinking 1-1.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking 1-1 and then I changed my mind, but
yeah.
There you go. Right, on to the next game, Sophie. We're going to go to St James's Park for Newcastle United versus Chelsea. Now, Chelsea scored 4 against Tottenham. They scored 4 against Man City. Could they score 4 here? It's a tall order because Newcastle is not an easy place to go and get a result. Newcastle haven't been great away in the Premier League. They did lose to Bournemouth before the international break, but at home I feel like I can trust them. I do think Chelsea get some goals though. I think this could be really entertaining. I was tempted to go for another Desmond here, but I reckon the home team might just sneak it. Both teams are very good. I'm going to go for lots of goals. Newcastle 3, Chelsea 2.
So I usually back Newcastle when they're at home, but they've got quite a few injuries, and I think playing in Europe is taking its toll at the moment. For me, they're not rotating the squad enough, and that's obviously having an impact on their injury list. So for me, Chelsea are going to win this. 2-1. I was going to say 3-1 or 3-2, because they do concede a few as well, but I'm going to say slightly tighter game, 2-1.
Interesting. We've both gone in opposite directions. Yeah. There you go. I mean, I think that's a really difficult one to predict. It's a good fact you mentioned about Newcastle in the Champions League. Their future kind of hangs by a thread, really. I think they could do well in the Carabao Cup, and I think these two play in the Carabao Cup in December. On to the next game then, Sophie. We're going to go to the City Ground, where Nottingham Forest take on Brighton. Brighton came into the international break on a couple of disappointing draws, where Forest just continued to be that team that's very good at home, not as good away, but they did give it a real good go at West Ham United.
They did, actually. They showed some fight, which I like.
Yeah, you predicted 2-2, and it was 2-2 going into the last minute until West Ham snatched it. With Nottingham Forest, I do feel like I back them more when they're at home than when they're away. They haven't lost at home yet. This is a difficult one. If Brighton turn up and play their best football, they're a very good team.
They can be, yeah.
But Forest did beat Brighton at home 3-1 last season. They actually picked up 4 points against Brighton. Okay. I'm going to go for Forest here. I'm going to go Nottingham Forest 2-1. I think Forest, with the home crowd on side, are a hard team to beat.
Forest at home?
Yes.
For me, I feel like a clean sheet for either side is what they need right now. But I'm going to give it to Forest. As you've mentioned, they've been good at home, and Brighton, they just haven't quite looked the same at the moment. Maybe they'll come back after this international break and they'll reach the highs that they were hitting at some point, and I feel like they will, but not this weekend, not against Forest. For me, they win fairly comfortably, 2-0.
Oh,
and that'd be a great win as well.
2-0 Nottingham Forest. Yeah, that would be a great win. Forest certainly a strong side at home. Brighton are a strong side, but
I like Brighton as well.
Been a bit inconsistent recently.
They have.
On to the next one, Sophie. Probably the biggest game in the bottom half this weekend. It's Sheffield United versus AFC Bournemouth. It's 18th at home to 16th. Sheffield United, before the international break, were doing really, really well. Yeah. They beat Wolves and then they followed it up with that 1-1 draw at Brighton. I know it's a small sample size, but if you look at those two games, 4 points, very good. And I have said that Sheffield Sheffield United have got some big home games coming up until Christmas, including, 6-pointers like this, where Sheffield United really need to win. These games make or break your season. But Bournemouth, Sophie, they beat Newcastle. We did not predict that. We both went for Newcastle to win 2-0. Bournemouth slapped us in the face with their 2-0 win. AFC Bournemouth are just so difficult to predict. Sheffield United have been improving. Tempted to go for a draw here, but I'm adamant that I'm not sitting on the fence as much as I can today, and I reckon home advantage might just pinch this. Sheffield United 2-1.
Okay, do you know what? I'll occupy that fence. I'm going to say a draw. It's going to be an entertaining one. It's going to be another Desmond. As you say, both teams, Bournemouth, I can't really say they've hit some good form. They got a good result. But Sheffield United have started to look like they're gelling, which is a great time for it to happen. But I can't separate the two, so that's why I'm going for a draw. But an entertaining one, 2-2.
Oh, Desmond 2-2 coming out to play. Interesting. It's a big game, that one. Do share your predictions for Sheffield United versus AFC Bournemouth. Next up, Soph, we'll go down to West London, where we see Brentford take on Arsenal. Brentford are very capable of tripping up the big teams.
Yes.
But they did lose 3-0 to Liverpool before the international break, so they can certainly be on the other end of those results. Arsenal have looked good, and with Man City playing Liverpool and Spurs, this is an opportunity for Arsenal to maybe try and close the gap if Man City do drop points. I think Arsenal are just too good to not win this. I just think they get through this. The big talking point for Brentford for me is Ivan Toney in January. I think that if he comes back into that team, they really stretch their legs in the second half of the season, because they have been good, but they did have a slow-ish start. For this game, I'm going to go Brentford 0, Arsenal 2. I think it'd be a professional Arsenal job.
Yeah, I feel like if this was at the Emirates, I'd probably go quite comfortably Arsenal. But I don't think it's going to be as easy. I do like Brentford as a team, but I agree, I don't see them winning this one. I'm going to say a slightly tighter game, and I'm going to say Arsenal 2-1.
Oh, you're going Arsenal 2-1.
Yeah.
Both going for the Gunners, but you think both teams will score. Okay, next up, Sophie, this one has potential to be a real cracker with loads of goals. We're going to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where Spurs play Aston Villa. Both teams have been very good. They've shown their qualities, but at times they've shown some
vulnerabilities.
Yeah, some vulnerabilities, good word, and sort of lapses in concentration. We've seen that with Spurs recently. In the last 2 games, they've conceded goals late on. I still think, in general, they've been brilliant under Ange, and they do need to go back to winning ways, but it's not an easy game to do it with. Aston Villa are very good. But I have said before with Aston Villa, a little bit like with Nottingham Forest, Villa are unbelievably good at home. Decent away, but not as good away. So Spurs come into this as favourites, but I think Villa could actually get out of here with a point, and I think there'll be quite a few goals. I think Tottenham just trying to find their feet, find their rhythm again, and once they get that next win, it could be followed up with 2 or 3 wins. And they really want to win this going into the Man City game next week. I'm going to go Tottenham 2, Villa 2. Another Desmond.
So you've gone for the Desmond now. Do you know what? I'm going to pick a winner. It's really hard, and I could see this going either way. But I'm going to back the home side. At times, Tottenham have looked very good. I know they've got a couple of players out injured, and they will still be injured for this game, so that could impact the scoreline. But I could see there being goals as well. 3-2 Spurs.
Oh, goodness me.
I think it's going to be a good game regardless.
I think it's going to be a good weekend. We're raining goals, aren't we? There are absolutely goals going everywhere in our predictions. Could we see some goals at Goodison next, Sophie, as Everton take on Manchester United? Now, of course, we'll mention, we already did mention in previous videos, that Everton have been hit with a points deduction. Now, when it comes to the football side of things on the pitch, I think this could work in 2 ways. It could have an effect where Everton now feel like everyone's against us, let's unite, let's be hard to beat. They're going to channel all their anger into the football pitch. Or it could work the other way, they could be deflated. I think it's going to go the first way. Everton are a strong team. They've been picking up some great results recently, and we have said that if there was an ideal season to get a points deduction, not that there is really such thing, it's maybe this season where Everton have a good chance of still staying up despite losing 10 points, because everyone else down there is not doing very well.
Saying that, they might get hit with another points deduction. It's not confirmed yet, it's just spoken about, but yeah, that could really be a big knock.
It certainly could be negative around Goodison Park, but like I say, I think it could go the other way. Now, Manchester United are certainly a big fish. They're coming here and they're probably the favourites to win this game, but I don't think I'm going to go with them. I know I've had a couple of Manchester United fans commenting on videos, you never back Manchester United, and I know I maybe should more, because Manchester United actually do come into this as the form team of the division somehow. 4 wins in the last 5, even if they are just scraping them, and it's not impossible Manchester United could scrape their way through this one. But I think Everton are going to be full of fire and they're going to destroy Manchester United 3-1.
Wow, imagine if that comes through. So you know how we've been going for goals in every game? 0-0 for me. I see this being a 0-0 stalemate. It's the battle of the poorly run clubs, and I don't see either team getting 3 points. So 0-0.
Wow, yeah, maybe.
That is all.
Yeah, there will be a game which catches us off guard with
probably won't be this one.
Barely any goals, but it could be. Manchester United, like I say, they're kind of in good form, but at times they're very vulnerable. And
Yes.
Everton's certainly coming into this in good form, but with a points deduction hanging over them, it's a bit of a strange time. On to the final game now, Sophie. Let's go to Craven Cottage for Monday night's game between Fulham and Wolves. 2 sides that have kind of swapped roles, in my opinion, since last season. Fulham were, a very solid mid-table team. They got a top half finish. Wolves were kind of battling to get away from the drop. This time round, it's a little bit different. Wolves have looked brilliant under Gary O'Neill. I really like Gary O'Neill, and I did back them to beat Spurs 2-1, as I said, and they did it with 2 late goals. They are really good, especially against some of the top teams as well. Fulham, I don't think they're going to go down this season, but they certainly have shown signs of regression. Maybe it's losing a couple of key players like Mitrovic. But yeah, they're certainly a lot lower down the table than where they were this time last season. I think this will be close because Fulham have the home advantage, but I wonder if Wolves just grind out another 3 points. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go Fulham 1, Wolves 2.
Yeah, I was tempted to say 2-1 as well, but I'm going to give Wolves a clean sheet. They've actually impressed me at times this season, and I'm going to give them the 3 points for it. And Fulham, not disappointed me because I wasn't expecting amazing things, but I was expecting a little bit more. And maybe they'll hit some good form at some point, but I don't see it being this weekend, so 2-0 Wolves.
2-0 Wolves, there you go. That wraps up our Premier League predictions for this week. As I say, it is non-stop football now over the next few weeks with loads of games coming and loads of predictions to come. So do make sure you're around to see all of them by hitting that subscribe button. And if you haven't already clicked the link down in the description, do head over to Pookie and get involved and compete with the likes of myself and Sophie. Cheers for joining us, Sophie.
Thank you.
We will see you all in the next video. Peace out.